Marshall, thank you for joining us. We appreciate this journey that we are all on. As you know, 9 to 12, Mondays to Fridays, we highlight, talk to, feature organizations, individuals who are all about building brand South Africa. These men, women, people are fanatical about how to change the lives of ordinary people, and that's what they do. They do their bit, I promise you. Now, as you know, entrepreneurship is key to economic growth, but for many young South Africans, turning an idea into a thriving business is an uphill battle. That's where Play Your Part Ignite, an initiative by Brand South Africa, comes in, offering funding, mentorship, and a game-changing platform for youth to pitch their ideas and access opportunities. Joining me now for Head of Brand is Sithembile Ntombela. She was the former acting CEO as well. And this is a woman who I've now seen on stage. She's highly dynamic. And if there's somebody that can talk to you about collaboration and driving the future of youth entrepreneurship in South Africa, it is definitely Sithembile. Good morning, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm great, and you, Sam?
You know, I think South Africans know, but there's a fair amount of South Africans that don't know that you guys are obsessed about this country. That you you wake up, sleep, eat. You and your comrades, you communicate. That's all you think about.
Yeah, of course. And that is why I'm here with you to try really and amplify that message. We are an entity that is passionately in love with this country, despite its challenges. Our mandate really is to position South Africa as a desirable investment destination. That's externally, right? If you speak to the international audiences. But if you speak to the people at home, our mandate speaks to how we encourage citizens to rally behind the nation brand. So which means, we promote brand love, nation brand pride, active citizenry, social cohesion, and I think that for me has been a defining moment in that Play Your Part has suddenly become that strategic platform and a program for Brand South Africa, and that is almost adding to the awareness of what we do. Yeah. Ultimately.
I thought about, before we did this interview, this past weekend, I thought about, and I had a conversation. I play, you don't know this, but I play paddle. And like most people do now, we all play paddle, we all take it serious and we all on the app and whatever. But I had such a fascinating conversation with friends of mine who are very influential in corporate. And I asked them this question while we were having chips. What does it mean to play your part, right? And they thought initially it was about paddle, and I was like, no, not about paddle. I'm doing this interesting conversation on Monday. What does it mean to play your part? And a friend of mine who does a segment on the show, Hilton Tienerson, the vice president of Growth Wheel, and he talked about, and before we unpack this youth thing, I just wanted to get your sense on it. He said, play your part means that you actively have to think about your role.
Yes.
If you're in a business, you have to actively think about your role in contributing to the growth of that business.
Yes.
What is your role? And a friend of mine who was a sports fanatic is that if you think of play your part in the sports context is that there is a team mentality that you need to have in order to have the team win, in order to make sure that, and winning is also looking at your faults and not limiting. And I thought that was quite interesting that there was this two perspectives of what play your part means in terms of the role. And I wonder how you see it as a leader who drives a team, who drives a country. I was fortunate enough, and I say fortunate, to be at the launch of your brand perception index.
Yes.
And I was watching you, and I was watching the team, and I was watching everybody, and I thought, this is such an interesting thing. And I wonder how you see those three very simple words, but very powerful words.
They're absolutely powerful. So I always say showing up is playing your part. Being present.
I love that.
It is showing up, whether you are playing for Bafana or, you are a Springbok fan, or you are in a creative arts.
Yes.
South Africans, they show up. And when they show up with the skill. They show the world that they are capable. So for me, playing your part is really has nothing to do with having money, but it's having the ability to understand first that there's a vision. People set their own visions, so do countries. And as people, as you, as Sam, have your own vision and you play your part towards that vision, that's ultimately what Play Your Part was anchored. And I think context is very important in the space that I play in, which is the nation brand. So when we had this brilliant national development plan, which was adopted in 2012 by Cabinet, our role as Brand South Africa, because we as an entity were established, right, to indirectly contribute towards poverty alleviation, economic growth, job creation, over and above just shifting perceptions about South Africa. So when you think about it, and now you've got this entity that is tasked with indirectly contributing to this massive job, but at the same time, we have this blueprint of the country which people don't know much about. Very few know. So ours was to sort of challenge ourselves. How do we get people to be the active participants of this strategy called National Development Plan? And that's how Play Your Part was born. That actually, if we each play our part within each of the respective chapter of that nation, chapters of within the National Development Plan, we could seriously contribute towards a positive social change. And that's what playing your part is. It says, do something to your community, no matter how small, no matter how big. But do something to contribute to a positive social change. And ultimately, it's the community. Ultimately, it is your country.
I've got to give you this compliment. You have such an eloquent, practical way of explaining stuff that I think sometimes we complicate in our heads.
Yeah.
And I think we that the mandate of this show has always been, for the last 4 months, every day, Mondays to Fridays, for 3 hours, we only interview people that are building this country.
Lovely.
So that is 35 interviews a week. 35 interviews a week.
Positive news.
Positive news. Our top of the hour news is positive. Our interviews is positive. For example, the gentleman just before you was from Bonitas. Bonitas, Gift of the Givers, Sibanye Stillwater, and the Northwest came together to upgrade a clinic facility. The lady before that you didn't see was the head of WITS. The WITS has just refurbished their dome and opened it up to school kids to be able, that beautiful.
Yes.
So they're working with communities to have those facilities. And so the list goes on and on of the people that we talk to on a daily basis. And then we started this campaign where we're saying every day we tell a positive story. And what I love about Play Your Part is that, and I think people know this, but what you've done is not only have you encouraged South Africans to really think differently, you've done it at a high level, at a corporate level, at a basic society level, but then you've brought in ambassadors. And then you could have, and I think what I also love about you guys is, you could have just said, okay, we'll do storytelling. But you run so many projects. You run a lot of projects. And not to out you, but you do it with a limited budget.
Of course. Our budget is nothing compared to a commercial brand. People, annual reports are public knowledge, so people would go and verify this. I'm talking about a 95 million marketing budget, right, to promote the country locally, regionally, and internationally. That's absolutely nothing to attract FDI, tourists. When you really think about it and you juxtapose ourselves as Brand South Africa with a Great Britain, for instance, other people that are in the same space, they put so much money. That's how South Korea was able to build that brand and shift perception from a country associated with war to a country that has now pushing your brand such as Samsung, a country that produces creative arts. People, the bottom line is, once the government or the leadership starts to see brands as nations, everything permeates all the way to people. And seamlessly we then, implement. But coming back to Play Your Part, I think what we are trying to do as Brand South Africa is to make it a cultural way of doing things in South Africa. We don't sit around and wait for government to intervene. You saw during load shedding times, we've had people, possibly, they don't even have driver's license, but guess what they were doing? controlling traffic. You and I, we were driving. In some instances, you just find those paras, but those paras were playing their part at a critical time.
Yeah.
When,
And we all, you're right, we're all playing our part, because how many of us have now slowed down? We understand this person is trying to help.
Yes.
And so we all, whether we agree or not, we are kind of playing our part by listening, or at least being a lot more, because I've said this so many times, and it's a horrible thing to say. But these men and women that I assume are destitute, they are doing a much better job than the officials.
Of course, they show up on time.
Are we allowed to say that?
Oh, well, why not? Sometimes constructive criticism is what will make this country a better place. And I think often we do things to please each other rather than to actually provide honest feedback. And at Brand South Africa, we are advocates of promoting that narrative of the reality. And at the same time, we bridge the gap between perceptions and reality, because sometimes the narrative can go so wrong as it is right now.
Which you're also dealing with.
Which is what we're dealing with. But we need South Africans based in market now to play their part and advocate for what is right and what we stand for.
Did you think that Play Your Part would become such a massive brand? And I'm going to say something super controversial. Somebody don't shoot me. I now believe that Play Your Part is a lot more influential, a lot more relevant than even Proudly South African. I'm going to say something very controversial, and I understand why it's controversial, but because I just think what Play Your Part as part of the Brand South Africa thing has done is the kind of people you collaborate, how you deal with the work that you do on the ground, how you see the role that you play. The only time I see Proudly South Africa now is on a Coke can, or when they do stuff, and I'm not asking you to say that, but I mean, you are a very relevant organization.
Very much so, and I say it's up to us to play your part into communities. And when people think it's about having money, that's when we come in and we say no. Take somebody who has skills, somebody academically who's doing very well, and they give mentorship and lectures to students. That's somebody who's playing their part without being paid necessarily. So for me, it's about that woman who sees a need to cook and use her own electricity because they understand somebody is hungry and they must show up. It's about people that are creating mobile clinics in Eastern Cape. We have ambassadors nationwide.
You spotlight, by the way.
Spotlight.
If anybody wants to know what South Africa is really about, not about the death, murder, rape, go to the Play Your Part Brand South Africa website. I think you'll be blown away.
Absolutely, and we want more ambassadors. So in Kimberley, we don't have much. Northern Cape, we don't have much ambassadors. We want those positive stories. We want to profile those brilliant South Africans that are doing amazing work. In Eastern Cape, we do have, but I would like to see growth. Northwest as well. So our footprint is very much national, and I was very intentional because it actually was my idea to bring in the Play Your Part ambassadors on board because we are only 55 odd people at Brand SA. So you need change agents who are on the ground, and we had to pull that call to action and put it out there. But there's a caveat there because we must vet you that you really exist. Your reputation is good because we don't want to use be associated with somebody who's not following suit or leaving the brand in many ways. Like you have to be aligned with our values.
I heard you say once on stage, I'm not sure if I interviewed you or I was watching you being interviewed, and you talked about you made reference to the fact that we've got a tiny budget, but what you said was, which gave me goosebumps, was, but we have influence.
Yes.
We have the ability to influence. And that is what we've been building. So our budget is not in comparison to the rest of the world, but if you had to measure influence, you would find us in that top tier.
Absolutely. In fact, I will quote, there's Minister of Tourism said to her team, which is South African Tourism.
Yes.
You go to Brand SA, they have money. and I'm thinking that's a perception right there.
Yeah.
Because actually we are nowhere close to South African tourism budget. But what we do work with is we work with and through stakeholders. And through that, we get a mileage in terms of, collaborating and co-creation, but because we come in and plug in with our little bit of money that we have. But we believe our partners it's a fundamental, they must be vision partners. We must share a common vision. And that vision is anchored on us seeing South Africa prosper. Not for us, for you and me that are living today, but for the legacies to come. Because if we don't make it right and do our part now, I'm afraid we give birth to a child that is 1 or 2 years right now. What are we saying to that child? So for me, Leopard is really, it hits at home because it should be everybody's, it should shape everybody's way of doing things, and approaching things, and not really thinking that, what solutions will come from government. That is why we were intentional with Ignite, because we know that from an unemployment perspective, sure, the numbers are shocking. We are at 34%.
Yeah, it is.
Shocking, the highest in the world. As you consider that, you also consider that South Africa is the most unequal country. So you've got some multiple challenges, and the answer lies in our hands. What can we do together if we collaborate towards a greater cause and a greater vision? So the vision is out there. The vision is that we want to see a South Africa that's...
And there is will.
Within South
yourself,
Africans, among South Africans, absolutely.
There's will.
You yourself are living the brand in your own way by telling these stories.
You talked about Ignite, and Ignite is now doing something amazing. In your words, what is it currently doing with young people?
Ignite is a program, essentially it's a campaign within a program of Leopard, where we decided that how do we create impact, something that is tangible. So Ignite, we decided we are going to get a target TVET colleges. But you know why? They are often not included, right? Those are the most like, oh no, it's skills colleges,
and we
it's
don't
this
know
and
why
that.
it has that perception,
I
by the way.
don't know, but we decided let's be intentional. So we went, found these colleges, we said pitch for an idea, and we also mobilize partners. Why we mobilize partners? Because it's important for us that if these students are now pitching for ideas, they must be able to find mentors. They must be able to find people that can invest financially, because we know the challenges amongst youth. They can have brilliant ideas, but market access, market understanding, and financing are the most common ones. So Ignite was really created to do that, so that these students will pitch, and then we will narrow down the pitch until we get the top 5, and then eventually the top 3, and the top 3 also wins, but different categories of prizes financially.
That was a lot of money though, eh?
Yeah, it was.
It was actually a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, but it was worth it.
It's like, what, for R500,000?
So R500,000 didn't come from Brand SA. So there's this brilliant lady, Mabunga, Portia Mabunga, who invented almost like a built-in, I would call it, for lack of a better word, well, it's a toilet, but it's a solution of a prototype that is built in within. Yes, inside that is built in a wheelchair. And then she found, who would have thought of that? Then she found somebody to fund her, and they actually put 500,000 behind her prototype. And actually now she is producing some of these products.
Young
so for
person.
me, say very young, that's the impact. We have one few youth in KZN that also won prizes, and one lady was sharing with us that her shop it's up and running. She's in creative arts in the clothing industry, which is then brilliant, because that it means 10 years later or 5 years later we'll come back to her and start to profile her as well. So for me, it's when we speak of theory of change, and theory of change speaks to impact-based activities, impact-based strategies. That is what we have intentionally adopted as
even want
Brand
to
South
tell our
Africa.
listeners, you can't see this, but you'll check our video out. Sithembile is wearing a local designer. That's how committed she is.
Two, this and this.
Yeah, she's wearing 2 local designers. So it's not just talking, it's actually walking the talk. Young people have ideas. And I think for the longest time, I don't know how you see this, for the longest time, we have not valued ideas, because we would just say, they're a dime a dozen. And yet, ideas have sparked the Microsofts, have sparked these multinationals that we see. That actually started with an idea.
Yes. Absolutely. Ideas. I'll share a story, a beautiful story, because I'm so in touch with these young ones. There's a story of Mphahlele. You can Google them, Mphahlele twins. They are from Hammanskraal. Very brilliant young ladies. They've designed, because obviously they come from Hammanskraal, they understand the challenges of access to clinics. They designed these classes, but with a built-in X-ray.
What?
I am telling you. And guess what we did as Brand South Africa? I spotted them, I onboarded them as Leopard's ambassadors. We supported them through profiling, because sometimes when you profile, it's a breakthrough.
It opens up the doors.
We profiled them locally, then we took them to BBC. I'm sorry to be mentioning another competitor.
But we are very friendly to brands.
So what happened is that through that international scope and global awareness, they have found some people that can invest in their prototype. So now that is impact.
X-ray glasses.
Because as they continue to do that, imagine the amount of work. We partner with so many entrepreneurs, but when we partner with one person, a friend, for instance, Bulelani, who owns the Township Economy Alliance, the tier.
We interviewed him last week on Friday.
He's our Leopard's ambassador.
He was in studio.
Really?
Bulelani Balabala.
Balabala.
He was in studio. He has changed the lives of nearly 80,000 small SMMEs in townships. And the work that they do.
And Brand South Africa is right there behind with Play Your Part, because we also, with a little budget, but we are looking...
It's like a full circle thing.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
That's what we want to create.
Yeah.
It's a domino effect.
Yes.
Because then there's
it.
Another one, there's another Bulelani in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, and that's precisely what we wanted with Play Your Part. And for me, when I see its growth, it's not only tangible from an impact, but we also measure the awareness of Play Your Part. The numbers are talking.
Yeah.
Actually, people are aware, and they are willing to play their part. It's the message that needs to cascade to people. How do I play my part? How can I get involved? Because they think it's something that is beyond their capabilities, and it's not.
Idea,
it's not.
But it's the little things, and that's what I said. As I said earlier, you have such a practical way of making us think about how can we play our part. How do we do our things a little bit better? If you are a leader in an organization, how do you play your part? If you're a community mama, how do you play your part? If you're the uncle, we can all do something that contributes.
Absolutely. I'm a product of I was given a chance. So after studying in my third year of marketing, I applied for what was called then a thumbprint training program. Thumbprint training program. And what it was, because of to combat the unemployment, was just few companies that came together, and it was a program championed by Handler Scaris at the time.
Oh, wow.
But
Big
their
agency.
their clients. So we rotated. We spent 5 months on each of the clients. Basically, all we received was just enough to take home, to sort of, covers transport your groceries for the month. But I reckon that today, if we can do more of those platforms where you find corporates are actually saying, let's adopt a rotation. So they are at Discovery today, they are in Coca-Cola, etc. We will, one day at a time, we will be changing and reducing this unemployment. Similarly with government, if they were to adopt the same, of course, we do a lot of internship. Even at Brand South Africa, we do get interns from IMC, CETA. But, if we can do that and make it our daily sort of cultural way, we all be a society that plays its part. Honestly, we will be the people that solve their own challenges. Whether we are talking about right now, the issues really is about the high unemployment. And in a country where that is so high, it's inevitable that crime is going to be high. So what you end up now, you end up with a ripple number of challenges. But you need to go back to basic and say, how do I first sort out the very, very fundamental one? And I think it has to do with also changing the narrative that going to a college, a TVET is bad. It's not bad.
It's not.
I went to a technical and look at me. I went into a normal, in fact, Bantu education. Even my kids, sometimes they laugh at me and say and correct my pronunciation. And I said, I don't care. But what I am I want to inspire somebody in a township that thinks actually just because I'm going to a technicon, I won't get any. You will. It's about the will and the hard work that goes behind
what you're
it.
willing to sacrifice.
And absolutely, that's the play your part mentality that I want South Africans to embrace. But I also don't just talk. I'm the true epitome of what play your part is. Yeah.
You know, as you're talking now, I'm literally getting a message from the head of marketing from the Skills Development Corporation, and we interviewed them last week. And they have put thousands of young people through readiness work programs.
Wow.
And they just put out a call now for a new cohort. He was saying, wow, this is pretty great. We are keen on a collaboration with Play Your Part. And
voila.
and just from this conversation, he's sending that message.
Lovely.
And I said, you've got a way of getting people energized and stuff. As we wrap up, Sithembile, we're going to invite you back all the time. We need to hear more of these stories. We need to understand more of these stories, and we need to let people know that it can be done.
Yeah.
There is a website that's very active, by the way. I think they've got one of the most active websites I've ever seen of just stories and information and content and the Ignite program and project. Where can people go?
So people can go to www.playyourpart.co.za. That's on the website. On social media, they can Facebook. We are called Play Your Part South Africa SA, right? Yeah. Instagram, it's also Play Your Part SA.
So we've at the disposable income of our listeners is nearly 8.5 billion rand a month.
Yes.
And I'm going to say this. Every time I've seen you, every time I've spoken to you, I'm engaged. This is actually you. You're very passionate. This is what you love, you eat, you sleep this stuff. So I just want kudos to you, kudos to
the
Brand
team
South
as
Africa,
well.
Play Your Part, to the team. And you've just got to follow their journey. It's exciting. I know sometimes we tell you to follow a platform and then they don't post. They post once a week. These guys post all the time. You know exactly what they're doing, what they're involved with, who the ambassadors are. They'll provide you with links. It's a very active community, so go and support these guys.
Absolutely a pleasure to have us. And really a last story that I'd like to tell for me was we went to one of the schools in Eldos last week, and I had mobilized the PRASA because PRASA had laptops to give away.
Oh, wow.
So I'm putting things into context so that the corporates that are listening, they can understand that actually if we have something to give away, then we can collaborate with Play Your Part. Then we actually do a show and tell of how corporates, how civil society are playing their part to really contribute towards a social positive change. To see those kids, their faces, for me, that is fulfilling. That is fulfilling because it simply says this is no longer about the job. 8 to 5, this is really about serving. And for you to serve, you must really be passionately aligned with the vision.
That's actually what we say every day. We say the people that wake up every day trying to fix South Africa, fix people's lives, we think those people are fanatical, but also they have no social lives because it's not a part-time thing, it's a full-time thing. So we know you are very boring. All you do when you leave now, you're
boring, actually.
When you go now, you're going to go to another event that impacts. So when I mean boring, you've got no friends. This is your only life. There's nothing. I'm sure your kids are also named
they sometimes
social
tell
impact.
They sometimes tell me, oh, mommy, you always play your part. Just play your part. Can you relax? And let's have fun. Because even at stadium, I start to look, okay, who's carrying the South African flag?
That's what I'm saying.
Because I go to a match, but I bring flags so that I can give others.
That's what I mean. Great conversation. Go and check these guys out. When we come back, we'll have a chat to Bernadette Boule. And as you know, every Mondays, we learn more about sustainable development. So it's a great conversation we're going to have with her just after this.
919